Ah,
Okay, this is Mark Arnold with Charles Rosenay and Dinky Dawson on the Fun Ideas podcast. How are both of you today?
I'm fine. How's Charles?
I look as tired as Dinky feels.
I'm tired. I just came back from acupuncture, so I'm enjoying myself right now.
I put up my Union Jack behind me for you.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, I thought that was a normal Liverpool thing. They lost today, so what can I say?
So Dinky, where do you hail from? Where are you living nowadays?
I'm in Plymouth, as it's called. We call it Plymouth in Massachusetts, but it's spelled Plymouth.
Okay.
And yeah, that's where I live. Is right on the coast down here, been here for many years. Let's put it this way.
Did you get another snowstorm yesterday?
Oh, yeah, tell me about it. We got about another 5 at least inches. Yeah. It's the small stuff that kills us. It's nothing. The big stuff you can get buried in, but it's the small stuff. And I drove into Boston at 6:30 this morning to get acupuncture. Wow. And fortunately, there was nothing on the roads, but a winter wonderland coming back, and yeah, it's still starting to the squalls and whatever. But I've lived up here, and I lived up here in the blizzard of '78. I got into trouble driving around. You're not supposed to be out. My crew looked after the WBCN in Boston at the Prudential. Had to walk up all the stairs because there was no elevators at the time, and they were on the top floor. So I've had my days with the snow, but I'm not a Florida person. Although I've got lots of friends that live down there in St. Augustine. I'm not. I don't think I want to go down. I'd rather live in, because I'm brought up in Yorkshire. What are you going to do when you come from Yorkshire? What you going to do? Yeah.
How did you get from Yorkshire into the music business?
Well, let's put it this way. 1966, I just posted in the 60s, 70s site of London a ticket that you might like. You've probably seen the other day, come from Ready Steady Go. Now, I was a dancer on Ready Steady Go in that time with Peter Stringfellow. I had disc jockeys, and I had 2 nightclubs myself at that time. The Pendulum with my other partners, and the LBGA club that we had. Then I got introduced to this from one of these friends of ours from the Alan Bound set, who became a roadie there. I'd just come back from Germany. You'd like this one for sure. You'd like this one. I was performing in a club called Kiel, called Star Palace in Kiel, for Manfred Wantella, and the opening act, or I should say the main act, was this guy, unbelievable soul singing, unbelievable guy called Paul Raven. Does that ring a bell? No. Because Paul Raven was such a dick. He wouldn't go on the thing. He wouldn't do anything, but he changed his name to a guy called Gary Glitter.
Oh, yes.
But he could sing really sing soul wonderful with the soul band behind him from Ireland. Was phenomenal. And I used to put them on and stuff. And then I go down to Hamburg and see some friends down there that actually lived and hung out, and the hookers that were with the Beatles in them days, in the 60s and stuff. And I'll tell you what they did why they were phenomenal, and not many people understand, but I should think you two guys would. They played 3 shows a night, just like we did in 1982 with Mamas and Papas in Vegas. When you play 3 shows a night for 5 nights a week, you get tight, and you get tight. When they left Germany, them guys were so tight musically. They were adorable, absolutely unbelievable.
Are we talking about the Searchers or Jerry and the
Beatles?
Beatles.
The Beatles.
I'm paying attention.
I met Tony Sheridan's wife, and a bunch of other those people that lived there at that time. Well, it was 67 at that time, so it's a few years later than what the Beatles did. But they were all still there, you know, because of the scene was so good and whatever, you know. So I got to know all the stories, stuff that I'm not supposed to say about what they actually did in Germany. And unfortunately, when I was with Fleetwood Mac, we were done the same problem. Well, Peter did. They took us to he took them to East Germany and started doing the cult stuff there, that what they did to the Beatles.
Was
and
it
the black magic rituals and all that stuff, you know?
Dinky, was it the same circuit? Was it Star Club,
Yeah.
Top 10, all those places?
Yeah, Star Club, the Star Palace, the Star, all those were in cahoots. It was like, it's the German mafia. It was, they're in cahoots. They're wonderful because I would have gone in to do DJing in Hamburg, but they wanted somebody in Kiel. And we had another guy in the Ambassador Club from England doing DJing. But we were like, we just kept our minds and ourselves to ourselves. We were told, because we were living in the club, all right, upstairs in the club, we were told never to go down the club once the audience is gone. Just do not go into the club till the next day. And things happened. There was shots fired. There was all kinds of stuff in my time that I was there. I didn't even want to know what they did. It's that kind of a place, you see. It was that kind of interesting. And the next day we were told to shut up and we got a hooker in our rooms, that kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it was all done, and anything that was going on was all hush-hush, whatever. You just stayed out. You did your job. Like Paul, he got up on stage and he could sing and he wowed these people to death. It really did, not just the Germans. But being in Kiel, it's where the Navy's coming from around the world to do Kielowaka for the Kiel Week. So you got the Mexican Navy, the American Navies, you got all these different ones coming in and they were rowdy. But they loved the soul music that I'd play and they loved the music that Paul played.
What's interesting is, and Mark, I think knows this too, Gary Glitter's only hit in the United States was an instrumental.
Yeah.
The only vocal was, hey.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
And then some people know it as Doctor Who because a different band covered it, so they go Doctor Who. Doctor Who.
All I know is that the soul stuff that they were doing with the Irish show band, the bass player married the heir of the fortune for Adidas, the sportswear. It was just like the scene was wonderful. They created it in such a way for us that it was so inviting to see people coming in and enjoying themselves with this music and stuff, and with every part of the entertainment side of it. But anyway, that was the Beatles. I can't tell you them other stories because, well, let's put it this way: the Beatles did the rituals in Germany, the selling the soul, the whole deal, and look what happened. But they didn't need to because they were playing an amazing amount of rock and roll, 3 shows a night, and that's what got them. Mm-hmm. And then when I get back to England at 67, I was asked at the club by like the Alan Bounds road manager, which was a really good band out of London. There was this opening for this roadie stuff, and I says, well, I was a steel worker, and I just left that. I'd got my own sound system that I was putting together for the DJ stuff. The next thing I know, I'm at Mick Fleetwood's Muse, actually his sister's Muse down in London, picking up a transit van and their equipment, and I brought it all the way back to Sheffield and fixed it up. It was destroyed. There was wires off there, but I knew what I was doing. And there's a film of me on the first gig or second gig that I did, I can't remember, of me picking up John McVie's bass amp and slamming it on the thing just because to keep the tubes, the valves in sealed, and you hear the bass come up in the thing. It's like the first second for 45 minutes. But I learned after that stuff on what to do with, and then I became real close friends with a guy called Charlie Watkins. Charlie Watkins is Wem. If it hadn't been for Charlie Watkins, there would have been no English music coming out. Charlie Watkins was the key to all the music in England. I'm serious. I mean, when you look back what he did in the skiffle days, his company, Wem, were the only people that had acoustic guitars in every shop for people to buy. He to this day, that Wem, and June is the only one left, and that's his wife in her 80s, they legally own every accordion that comes into England. Every accordion, you have to, goes through them from Italy. And over the years, Charlie invented everything, like he invented the MIDI organ in the 80s and stuff like that. MIDI the accordion, and so he could play orchestra with it on the computer. It was so fun. But Charlie, every show, Charles, that he did at London, the Hyde Park, the Windsor Jazz Festival, the Isle of Wight, the Bath, every festival you saw Wem at, Charlie did for free. Not one dime or dollar or pound that he got for that. Like the Stones and the Hyde Park. I posted a photograph of Fleetwood Mac's second gig that I did in 1968 of them at Hyde Park, with all the audiences on the stage at that time. This is one of the first early gigs of doing the stuff in Hyde Park. And you see the group like all huddled up playing, and all the crowds on there, just like we were in the bar. We did that in the afternoon, then we drove to Southampton and did the ballroom in Southampton at night. That's what we were doing. We were creating stuff as it came along. If it hadn't been for Charlie, there would have been no Jim Marshall, because that first amplifier he had was a Dominator. And that circuit, he changed into, only thing he did is make it from 14 watts to 50 watts. Same circuit. And that amplifier that he made, that 50-watt Marshall amplifier, is the best amplifier that they ever made. Everything else from there sucks. But it's still Charlie Watkins. And every cabinet that he had, that Jim Marshall built, and the first run was not from Jim Marshall, it was from Wem. What Charlie did was just spectacular for the scene, everything that you saw in that time period. But it goes back even more. What Charlie did in the 50s was invented the copycat. Now that copycat saved many people's business, because Jimi Hendrix, for one, became Charlie's best friend. Jimmy would come over to the place all the time just to play the accordion. Jimmy was an incredible accordion player. What? Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I posted that on Facebook about 3 years ago. Jimmy playing the accordion. Nobody could believe, that's not Jimmy. It's Jimi Hendrix playing the accordion. No, it was incredible. And him and Charlie would play together. And people like David Bowie would come over in the at lunch as a young man, just to have the stories that Charlie would tell about all the groups he used to do in the 50s from America. All the acts that came through that he did every sound system for, from Buddy Holly to every one of the Big Bob, every one of them that came through England from the 50s and all the way through the 60s, were all using Wem. And Charlie was the one that went through all that. In fact, the Byrds, the original Byrds, hated the Wem. I go over there, and to get me and buy me to come out to Fleetwood Mac. When I was with Fleetwood Mac, I left to go and join the Byrds, and I made them buy a Wem. I brought the Wem over to this country and showed them how we could go make money in colleges. We did 3 years of colleges without a commercial date. We just did gyms, and we did this, that, and the other. And we pioneered stuff in the 71. When I left Peter, I left in 1971 when Peter was starting to get a little funny. Now that brings me to...
Dinky, let us ask, how did you go from England and being entrenched with Hendrix and in the British scene? How did you jump to the States? You were with Fleetwood Mac. And then all of a sudden you're with the Byrds and you're with the Mamas and the Poppers.
Well, what happened with Fleetwood Mac, Peter started, we tried to help Peter. He went beyond it in doing too much acid and stuff. And we tried to look after him. But I'd come to America with Fleetwood Mac twice. And during that time, we became friends with groups such as the Grateful Dead, It's a Beautiful Day, and then individuals along the way, Kansas from roadie from Frank Zappa people. But I then was become really popular because we opened it for a group called the Byrds in Chicago, and we blew them away. And the next thing I knew, we actually blew Cheer away in Detroit. We blew them off stage. Peter, I'll tell you this story. You're gonna love this one. Peter used to play 16 bass solo just for larks, just for fun. Mm-hmm. Well, we all got all these Fender, we all got all this gear. Peter looked at me. I'm out in the sound stuff, doing the sound and stuff, and he looked at me and he said, "Dinky," and that was it. I just came running to the stage, and what I did is hook up every amplifier in the place to Peter's bass, plus the sound system, and I turned it up, and the building started falling down. It started rattling and falling down. The audience is freaking out, having a great old time. And I'm pissing myself because it was just so loud. And then he just blended it down and brought the electric guitars in and just ripped this place apart. Grandy Ballroom. Russ Gibb, the next day, the night before, he sent 2 people after me and Peter who got the cash in our hands. He sent 2 people after us. And Peter ran into it. We knew what they were trying to do. We called Russ Gibb out on an airplane going to Miami, to the Miami Pop Festival the next day from Detroit. And we said that you will never get another English act. We'll close it down. We'll call Frank Barcelona up at Premier Talent, and we'll stop you. And we did. They couldn't believe it because it sent the boys to get it money because I got the cash in my pockets. We never worked unless the Who's even worse than us. Let me tell you. But anyway, I know Bobby and stuff, Bobby Pridd and all that. But anyway, the bottom line is that was sensational in Detroit. But prior to that was in Chicago. I'd met the Byrds roadie, tour manager Jimmy Sider. And he completely went nuts. So I got a call in the summer. We'd quit with Fleetwood Mac in 1970, 71, I think it was, in the spring. I've got it all listed down, all the dates. And next thing I know, I got a call from Jimmy Sider. Would you come on tour with us in Europe? We're going to be going to Germany. We're going to go to Holland. We got these festivals. This one festival in Germany called TAN, Total Action Now, in an arena. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I said, yeah, well, I'll get the truck. We'll bring all the gear into England and we'll set it off from there, and I'll take the Wen with us and stuff. So we did. And next thing I know, I'm going over London Bridge and I see John McVie in his car, and I backed at him and I waved at him, and I got Sider in the car. He has never forgot that. He is so pissed off with me for leaving Fleetwood Mac. You left us in the middle with Nellie Bell, he calls the old truck. I didn't get Nellie Bell, I took a Navy's truck. But basically, yeah, that was, but I wasn't going for the whole time. I was just going for them 3 weeks. But what happened is that we had an event that's a whole story that I wrote a book on called Life on the Road, and it's all about the Byrds, about us breaking down in Ghent, Belgium, on our way to Total Action Now. And that's the ghost story involved and all kinds of stuff real stuff that really went down that would freak you out. But we were normal to us because it was things that were happening. But we go to Total Action Now festival, and that's the first thing I'm doing. And they introduced me to the Byrds because I've not really met them personally. So I'm getting ready to set up. And who comes up on the top tier, but this guy with a guitar running around the top tier of the whole place? It's Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry didn't want to go on stage unless he got paid double because he saw 30,000 people out there. Typical Chuck Berry. I didn't know. And Jimmy says, "Oh, that's Chuck. Don't worry about it. He'll be cool." And he knew, because Jimmy knew all the ins and outs of all these characters, But when I was first show at the Byrds, they couldn't believe what they were hearing. And they could hear themselves sing. They could hear themselves do the things. So we did the next gig was in Holland for Barry Vista. Now that was the big festival that everybody's on it, and the people were going over these moats in these big giant humbugs. plastic humbugs. It was a phenomenal scene. I mean, 300,000+, worse than Woodstock at that time. And the Dead were there, and I was having a time of my life just for fun. But we just absolutely blew that place apart. And then the next gig, we blew that one apart with this one. And they kept saying, you got to come with us. You got to come with us. So I ended up saying, okay, the Fleetwood's not going to go out for a while. Let me go see what happens. So I got on a plane with them, went back to Los Angeles, I told them I wanted to get this WEM, so I took them all down to WEM, and they no problem. They would buy the WEM and me to go across to America to perform and stuff. And the first day I get to the LAX with Jimmy Cider, this limo's waiting for me outside, and this young man called Terry Melcher. Do you know who Terry is?
Yeah, of course. Doris Day's son. And he also hung out with the Beach Boys and a lot of other people, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that whole scene. Well, that's why I'm getting to Howard and Mark and stuff. Anyway, so the next thing I know, I'm in this limo, and next thing, Jimmy Cider is just about going to nail Terry Melcher in the middle of the limo. He's trying to give us this key to this house. You're going to stay here, Dinky. The only thing you got to do is clean it out for us. I didn't know nothing about this thing. Seriously. Didn't know nothing about it. The next thing I hear is Jimmy say, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. He's coming over to my house, and we're going to get our own birdhouse. Well, I didn't know, but it was the Manson house. It was what had happened. See, what had happened is Terry had given Sharon the house for the weekend while Terry went to her house on the beach. He'd already turned Manson down 3 or 4 times on records and stuff he proposed. Mm-hmm. So, but Manson didn't understand that thing about swapping homes for, what these guys used to do in Hollywood. They used to do that and have parties in there so you don't have to go that far. And that was a sad scene that happened. I didn't know that whole damn thing and stuff, and this is after the fact. So I ended up in Hesby Street or whatever it's called in the hills at Jimmy's house. And 3 weeks later, even though we're doing some shows, Jimmy goes out and we get a house in Sherman Oaks called the Birdhouse. And the reason we call the Birdhouse is because Byrds would come with different girls. It was Byrds and then different girls, and Byrds and me and Carlos Brunel. Now, this is where this comes in. Carlos Brunel, who used to play, do you know Carlos, Charles?
No.
Did you know the Byrds went to Africa, South Africa?
I know they go. I know they fly away when it gets cold, but I didn't know they went to Africa.
No, they went to South Africa to play.
Uh-huh.
The bass player wouldn't go, but Carlos was the roadie and he played bass, so he went. Carlos Burnell was a roadie, and he was not only a roadie for them. Jimmy introduced me to him at the house, and the first day I met him, there was this big parade going off down on Olivera Street in LA, Carson Boulevard there. And there's this guy in a white, all dressed up, Mexican guy with a big hat on a horse, drive down there. The next thing I know, this same guy's at my house, Jimmy, with me and Jimmy, it's Carlos. His dad owned a good portion of that street because he had shops on it from Mexican shops on there and what have you. And then another character came in at the same time called Al Hirsch. Now, Al Hirsch, you may have heard of in future times, but in that time, we used to call him Al, the kiddie's pal, because the kiddie had a store on top of Topanga Canyon that sold clothes and pot, and many other things. And him and Carlos were running that. And they introduced me to this other characters that came in called Spanky and our gang. It was mainly Spanky and her family more than anything that were coming out of Topanga. And we were going to Topanga to the corral to see them play and stuff. The next thing I know, who should come over is Howard and Mark from the Turtles.
Yeah.
I have no idea who these characters. Yeah, I know of them and this, that, and the other. And they we got a new kid in town. Let's go see what's going on here. And they were fun. They came in. We smoked a lot of weed. It was really just get together and get together and meet people. Well, then after that, what happened is over the years, right? I started my own sound company in 1972. But this is when it gets with all the Turtle stuff. So now we're going up to a whole few decades later. By 1983, actually 82, I was asked by callers called me from New York, and then I hear this Spanky on the phone. Would you come down to New York and would you help us? I said, what do you need? And she says, well, we're reforming the Mamas and Papas. So I'd not met John before, but I went down to New Jersey in the Cadillac Eldorado. I had this old Cadillac. The next thing I know is my best pal in my front seat and John. But we did rehearsals. We did all kinds of show stuff. We did, coming up. I've got all that, lots of photos and stuff on that kind of thing. We did Entertainment Tonight, and we did this, that, and the other, just to showcase. And it was great to see Spanky, but she was singing her ass off in the Mamas and Papas. And then this younger lady came in place of Michelle was Laura Mackenzie, and Denny and I mean they were just fantastic. Anyway, we got a little team going here because every time we went to these gigs that were coming up. We were doing stuff. Now, what had happened is Al decided to come along and do management side because Tucker was a lawyer that was managing in New York, but there was nobody like tour managing or other than Carlos. And Carlos is not a tour manager; he's just a wonderful man. And I'll tell you what happened to him, unfortunately. But anyway, Al got us the four walls through this young man called David Fischoff in New York City. David Fischoff, why I'm bringing David in is because he's the key to everything. David was a baseball agent, lawyer, business, and more of an agent than anything. And they was just getting into the music stuff. So he was getting us, pushing us out. He put us in Grossinger's in New York. And then talking to Al, they had got a deal together to four-wall the Sands in Las Vegas. All right. And four walls the Sands means that we didn't get paid. We got everything we wanted for food. And we just had a great old time. All the hotels was paid for us and this, that. Oh, some great stuff happened there. Oh my goodness. And this is where the Howard and Mark story starts. Because the first night we played, which is a Tuesday night, we were doing now 3 shows a night. And it was till 3 o'clock or whatever in the morning. It was just, and it got this group really, really playing excellent and the band singing everything. So after the show on Tuesday night, I get a call. I'm up in the sound booth from Al. Don't come into the dressing room. Frank's here. I said, what? He says, you have no idea. See, what had happened is Frank Sinatra got a contract out on John because he was bonking Mia Farrow and this, that, and the other. And he got and John Frank didn't like that. But Frank came in with his henchman and he just went straight up to Phillips and he says, I'm going to forget this, but you have to do one thing for me. You have to get these 60s acts into Vegas for me. So John didn't know what to say, but Al jumped in and said, yeah, I'll get them, no problem. Next day, calls Fischoff up. The next thing, Al's chiming off all these acts. I want the Turtles. I want Association. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Turtles Association.
No, I got a screen that came up in the thing.
Oh, okay.
The Turtles, the Association, Gary Puckett, and anyone else you can find, and this, that, and the other. Well, what about the Monkeys? That kind of stuff.
What about the Monkeys?
But this is Fischoff going off the thing, and I said, and Al said, whatever you can get. Well, that next day, Frank came back the next day, and he found out that he was getting Gary Puckett, who was getting the association, who was getting the Turtles. But they hadn't talked about the Monkeys because Fischoff had got that in his bag because he wanted to put them in stadiums. Stuff like that. So what happened is that the next thing we know, we got these opening acts. We got the association, we got the Turtles, and we got Gary Puckett, you know? And so it was like a nice 60s kind of thing that went off, and it was packed every night. So we had no problem packing the place. And then we moved on to other things. But in the meantime, this is 11th of January 1983 that happened. And then the 17th of January we're out there. Another event happened. Upstairs, all of a sudden there's commotion, and who comes off the elevator and running into my room, but Peter Fonda. And what it was he's trying to run away from the Japanese guys who was going Honda for Fonda. He was there to promote Honda motorbikes because he was getting a lot of money. And Al says, Al was the one that put him in my room just to hide him because they didn't want him in John's room and then them other room because John didn't get off on Peter. Peter was Peter wasn't liked in a lot of ways with that scene of the Community. Oh, that was a scene and a half. Dr. Likes in LA. Anyway, but so that was the first things. Then we go downstairs after all this chaos has gone on. We go downstairs, and at the bottom of the stairs, there's Eric playing one of these shovel machines, for quarters. He's putting quarters in, and they're pushing the quarters. And the next thing happened was this guy called Paul Daniels, who's from England, and he was talking to Eric. He says, "Eric, do this," and he showed him how to do it, and the whole damn machine just dropped. You see, he's a magician. Paul cannot go in there and play on the cards, so he had us a lot playing cards for him because he just loved it. He just loved that whole thing. He can't play cards because they wouldn't let him play because he knew how to count the cards and work the cards and rip everybody off. But on the machines was a different story. We had buckets emptying this damn thing. I says, "We don't tell anybody it's all quarters. They're just going to look." But the whole machine went. She says, "No, there's techniques to all these machines, and make some money if you listen to me." But that's another character that came along on that time period, and he came to the show and he couldn't believe it. He was really excited about it, and he spread the word through England, and that's how we got over there. Anyway, the next big event is what happened is with the Turtles. Is March 16th of that year of 83. 83. We were doing a TV show in Salt Lake City for this STS Communications, Skyless Communications or whatever it's called. And they asked me, because I'm mixing Mamas and Papas, we were the first ones in there, if I'd stay and work with them on the association and Turtles that were coming in. So Howard and Mark come in, and oh man, they're wonderful to work with because they're so professional. And I'm on this new board. I said, "I'm not that good at this. Let the pros come in. I'll just talk to you, and play with you." And we just had fun going back and forth, emotional wise on video. Come on, you guys. And it was just like we'd always been together. We were all just the friends and what have you. But we weren't, because it's the really first time I'd ever worked with them and this, that, and the other. But that was on TV. Now, May 10th, 1983 is when the big thing. They come to Boston to play, and Carlos calls me up because he's decided to go because Mamas and Papas are off and I'm at home doing projects, getting ready for the South Shore Music Circus and this, that, and the other. Because I was doing a lot of those MOR acts in the theatre in the round, Sammy Davis I did, and all those people. Great performances. But anyway, this is after the STS. This is where it gets interesting. Just this one little story about Howard and Mark. They're performing at Jonathan Swift's in Cambridge. Mm-hmm. And it's a funky little place downstairs. And Mark Parento was a disc jockey that was, big old guy, big tall guy. Having fun with Mark and Howard, they were real stoned before they went on and having a great old time. And they were really relaxing. Mark goes and trips up, puts his shoulder out. The next thing you know, they've taken him to Mount Auburn Hospital to get it all fixed in. This is at Jonathan Swift's. Put his shoulder back, and he wanted to go back on stage and stuff. That's typical Mark. These guys just want to perform. They're just such wonderful and really do perform well. Now, at that time, big hair was just starting to come in, and they had a band that had a metal guitarist and this, that, and the other playing and what have you. And they would just let him rip, rip it away, and then they'd sing high parts and do the whole thing. And it was like being watching Zappa in a lot of ways because of what was fun. But their shows were fantastic. And then Fischoff kept calling, we're going to put a package together. And we're going to call it Happy Together. And that's what it's been for the last 20 odd plus years or whatever it is. It's Happy Together tour, and you'll see the association. You'll see Gary's still going at it at this point. I think Gary Puckett. Spanky with Mamas and Papas, she only went so long, and then I think it was quite a few years. And when John went, it was what's his name? That came in, who did
Gary Lewis did it, and
no, I'm not talking. I'm talking of
Hermits for the Happy Together. Mark Lindsay.
Yeah, that was it. That was the tours that they started doing. Is that kind of packaging? But those packaging were going to the rooms also in Vegas and Reno, Tahoe. So like we went into Reno, Atlantic City, and the first night we get there, this guy comes over to see us, Tom Jones, right? He's performing up the street. Now, Tom, did I tell you about that in 1966? I'm doing dancing in Ready, Steady, Go, but the BBC commissary for Ready Fusion, we were allowed to go in there, so we were all the dancers were in there and what have you. And who comes in here but this guy called, Tom Jones. And we were all going, oh, it's not unusual. Next thing we know, there's Jello flying left and right and left and right. So that night he came in Reno. I go, oh, Tom Jones, the Jello man. He freaked out because he remembered it. He remembered. I says, I thought we were getting real bad, with the Who and the Kinks when I came in with the Kinks when I worked with them in 72, and they inaugurated me into the Kinks with the swimming pool with the TV in the pool and the settee and all that stuff. And, they did that. And how they got out of that and told the Holiday Inn people it was fantastic stuff. Mm-hmm. We had all these fans that come over and they destroyed the place. Really. But these are the times and scenes that went off in the individual thing. And Howard and Mark just kept calling and stuff, wanted to go out and do even more. So with Fischoff doing the Happy Together, they were set for whatever they wanted to do. They could go on them tours in the summer, relax in the winter, and go to Hawaii like they wanted to do and smoke ganja and stuff and have fun, and still sing whenever they needed and stuff. So they had a good thing going for quite a few years like that. And it's still going. I'm still amazed that they've still got that whole package together, because I see them down the Melody Tent every so often, right, and what have you. But that was basically the main story, is throwing his shoulder out. And then I went back to on the June 14th and stuff to Salt Lake City to do more STS stuff when they did some more stuff there, singing and what have you. And it's all on video out there. So if you can get your hands on that, you'll get some good stuff off of that, because that was classic stuff for them guys.
Did you ever produce them or work with them in the studio?
No, I never did that, and I'd love to, because Todd would do that. Todd Rundgren, people like that would be doing that kind of thing. For me, studio was Fleetwood Mac Chicago blues with Marshall Chess and all that stuff. I brought the Byrds to England and brought them into CBS and got CBS England to pay for an album that I wrote a song on with Gene called BB Class Road, driving down the highway 7 days a week. And everybody thought they were having a tough time because the roadie wrote a song. But it was just the time. Everybody was part of a team. And that team worked really, really well together. And we proved it. We proved it. I just posted a letter, which you may have seen, from Kent State, thanking the Byrds because we played there, but there weren't that many people. But what we'd done is Roger Voss, our agent, Roger, a wonderful agent. If he was still alive, man, the stuff that you guys would learn from him, in fact, you'll see a posting I posted today of Roger in Paris because he told me and Carlos to stop beating on people, and the next thing we know, there's Seymour Stein and there's Roger in the same hotel in Paris, and he's pulling over the clerk, beating the crap out of this clerk. I said, Roger, you're not that guy. We do that stuff. You're not that guy. But it's such a wonderful agent.
Now,
but anyway, I'm rambling on. Go on.
I was curious of two things. Were you with the Byrds till the end when they broke up, like around 73?
No, I left in 1972 to form my own company.
Oh, okay.
What I did is I did this. I had the largest music reproduction system in the world. It was left, right, center vocal cluster, and left, right, rear. All right, but it was at home hi-fi. It was the biggest hi-fi you'd ever seen in your life. Mahavishnu Orchestra blew the doors off with that everywhere we went. And I did Lennox out in, that's where we did everything. I have a Lou Reed thing that I'm trying to get on Sundays right now that is phenomenal. From Lennox, when we put a band together that became eventually 6 months later Alice Cooper, band for Alice Cooper, Steve Hunter, Dick Wagner, the duet and stuff. And that Rock and Roll Animal album sucks compared to the one that we did because it's a different band. We did that tour, and we took them from Lennox, which gives an incredible side of things. And then the last gig was at the Rainbow in London. And the Rainbow in London was phenomenal. If you want to hear some of that tour, it's on Wolfgang's Vault. There's about 6 or 7 shows on there. But that's an amazing, amazing thing. There's on the Byrds stuff, there's about 120 odd Byrds shows that's on Wolfgang's Vault. They're all mine and stuff like that. The Byrds in Manchester is phenomenal, which I'll post because I've been able to get it. Somebody posted on YouTube the whole thing, so I'm going to post that up. But phenomenal stuff. You know, we did a phenomenal shows, phenomenal things everywhere. Byrds were wonderful at that time, but when I left, they were going through trauma then. You know, individual trauma. Well, all groups go through it even now, you know. Yeah. But you can work together and work it out, because after that, I'd left and I did Fleetwood Mac, but I mean I did in 1972 I did the Kinks, their tour, and the first tour they did for a while, you know, and this was 72, and the opening band in 3 gigs down in Texas when we first did it with the sound system was this young man called Steely Dan. Well, I ended up with Steely Dan. I have 2 platinums on the wall here that I worked on in the studio, but I've got all the live stuff from 73 on. 74 tour, the whole tour from 74 until 75 when they actually quit, because Steely Dan was just Walton Donald. Everybody else is paid employees. It's like the Byrds. The Byrds is only one person, is Roger. Everybody else is paid employees.
Well, I have a Steely question though. They had the B-side on one of their singles of Bodhisattva, where that drunk guy goes on stage and just rambles on forever. Were you there when that happened?
No, that's my recording. That's recording.
That is your recording. Okay.
Off a cassette. That's off a cassette.
Oh, okay.
Whole thing.
Because I know they put it on a B-side of a single one.
Jerome, Mrs. Jerome, he trashed our truck. It was a driver that was sent out of LA, and I knew that they got the wrong truck thing as soon as I saw him trash umpteen things, you know. But anyway, he came back because we got him fired and stuff, and he came back and he introduced him. And then the next part is one. If you go on Wolfgang's Vault, you'll hear one show that they did in the Paramount in Seattle there, or Portland, or whatever it is. And you'll hear Chris Adamson. Now, Chris Adamson was my roadie with me, and what you've heard him on is the Pink Floyd. If you gotta have your meat, you gotta have your pudding. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you hear him. Knew who did
that. That was Chris, and then you have Chris introducing Steely Dan. You may like him personally. I don't, and it's still they used to introduce them like that. But you want to hear the Rainbow Show that's up there. If you like Steely Dan, you want to hear the Rainbow Show from London that's on Wolfgang's. That is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'm curious about also.
We blew every time I went in there, because you see age, and when we then came to on the stage, you're frozen. No, you're not. Now you come back.
Yeah.
When we came in,
for some reason the connection is going
every time they build a stage up for the Rainbow, they call it, down, but quality, dynamics. The dynamics is phenomenal, and you'll feel the guitars taking you this way, taking you that way, because it's in stereo, and they're all these guitarists are freaking out. I said, well, it's just fun, because I'm taking off it, not the band. That's why I did with Lou Reed. But it's just fun stuff that you're creating with the band.
Dinky, I know Mark is starting to freeze over there. I don't know why, but I know he has one more question. I just want to give you the opportunity, because we're almost out of time, to plug the Wolfgang's Vault. If people want to buy rare recordings and stuff, tell us about that.
Well, Wolfgang's Vault came to me 10, 12 or whatever years ago, and they just bought, Bill Sagan just bought all Bill Graham's stuff from one of the media things, and he got all the stuff, the posters. I should have shown you some of the I've got more posters here and stuff. I've got a Beatles one that is 6 foot by 6 foot, and it's worth a lot of money, because I wrote on the guitar, this machine kills.
Oh, no.
It's just the Woody Guthrie thing, at the time, you just get carried away. But the Wolfgang's Vault originally was set up to help the artists with the live recordings that I'd got with what Bill had got, and we introduced him to the Ash Grove recordings. We introduced him to many different people that we knew that had quality recordings, because what the concept was that they'll put them up, they'd charge for the recordings and stuff, charge you for them, and the artists would get the recordings, not the lawyers, not the record companies, but the artists. Well, they got sued by the record companies for millions and millions of dollars. So they ended up having to say nothing. They had to be a record company. That meant giving nothing away, but everything to the other record companies. All the stuff that people, little groups, just little really good artists that played and opened for us, that became something. But they wanted to. The record companies wanted them because they were, that's what they've got now. That's what's happening now with CBS and stuff like that. Is that they don't want any other person to come on there. They just want to provide from the material, especially from the 70s. The 70s is popular with the 20-year-olds right now, big time. My youngest daughter, who's an architect down in Manhattan there, she turned around, and every time I ever get her in the car, first thing she does is put on the damn 70s on the Sirius. And I said, well, so I kept sending the stuff that I'd done, and you did that? I says, yeah, I did that. What's up? Oh, you did that? Yeah, and I took her home to meet Spanky.
I did have one more question, and I wanted to ask it before we wrap up. You mentioned your stories with the Turtles there in the 80s. I was just wondering, did you ever cross paths with them way back in the 60s, like if they came to England or anything like that? I was just curious.
Not in that time, other than in the house in 70s when we did the Birdhouse. They would come over half the time because I've got the receipts here from the Byrds, right, from all the Fender equipment, and I see Howard and Mark. In other words, the Fender went over to Howard and Mark, keyboard went over to Spanky. Start laughing. Spanky Galvin. That's where the keyboard went. So we found out where all that stuff went. No, I never did in the 60s. 60s was a whole different ball game with us because we came from Sheffield. The Beatles were our £75 a night group. Seriously, that's what we paid for them at that time period. But we were getting more of the groups from Liverpool. Manchester we wouldn't get because it's War of the Roses. We used to, get off onto Herman Hermits there and tell Peter Noon, you're from Manchester. We're Sheffield people. But the Mojo Club had all the acts, like Stevie Wonder played on one night. He could not believe the audience refused to leave the place and wanted to play the next day. So we'd sent everybody around to the all nightclubs in Manchester, London, not just London. In them days, there was no radio to do that. You have to, there was that you could promote the stuff on. But there was all-nighters. And the all-nighters were great because you'd pop in there in the middle of the night. You'd get the steam packet coming through the club. Rod was so crazy, he'd go over to he wanted to go and see all the girls getting changed because they all had different negligees on in our club and stuff. And he worked the cloakroom and stuff like that. Yeah. But those were the fun times, you see. All that was... even until the mid-70s, you could go and be with these people and have fun with them and work with them. And they'd play and jam with you for hours and sing with you for hours because that was it. But then when the lawyers and the record companies came in, you can't do that. There is 2-hour recording of the first time that Carlos Santana came to England. When he came over we had him come down the studio, and that's at Peter Green, and we're doing Then Play On. So he comes in the studio before he goes to play Royal Albert Hall as a guest and stuff. And Carlos, that's how he picked up Black Magic Woman. But there's a 2-hour jam of them that Clifford's still got, and I've been on his case. We've got to put that out. The people will freak out on that thing because it's really good. And a lot of them jam things that we did in the 60s with the Dead at their place. Janice was our dear friend. More stories on Janice. Janice used to run after Danny Kerwin like you won't believe. She got my back in Sweden, hit me on the back. She says, this was in, I didn't know I was setting up in Stockholm in the concert house. The next thing I know, this woman hits me on the back. I'm turning around, what the fuck? I was really upset, I was like that. And it was Janice. She says, where is he? Where is he? She was chasing Danny. She went and she chased him everywhere. But those were the good stuff. And then before Janice died, my friend Charlie Watkins, who I was telling about in England, who had WEM, he was over in America working on some stuff because she asked him to come over after they did their Albert Hall. I put the stuff in the Albert Hall with Charlie for Janice. I'd left it in because we did B.B. King, I think it was the night before Janice was going in. One of the shows that Fleetwood played there. We played Albert Hall, and I brought in 2 6-foot parabola dishes for vocals. 6-foot parabolas, hung them on either side of the organ, and the 6-foot red things with black speakers facing into them. Mick Jagger comes up to me, and this is after the show. He comes up to me. He says, "Boy, I like that, but boy, that woman doesn't look so well up there." He was liking the boobs. I said, Mick, it would go well with your inflatable dick. And he did. He gave it us. He gave us the dick to go and play roundhouse. We had the parables up there and the inflatable dick going up and down. In fact, you'll hear on the Fleetwood Mac show that says the roundhouse and Wolfgang's vault.
Well, on that note, we should probably wrap this up. So, I want to.
We'll tell you, and Peter looks up and says,
Great story.
Anyway, on that note, I would like to wrap this up.
There's so much of it.
Thank you, Dinky, for being our guest. And I wish this connection was a little bit better here. That's and
it's going.
Being on the show as well on the Fun Ideas podcast, and we learned a lot. All right.
Maybe we'll do it again.
Well, yeah.